Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to do a video going a little bit more into RAIKA. This is a brand new archetype that was revealed in the last week, basically. A lot of people super interested in it, a lot of people talking it up, and I think there's good reason for that. So today I want to talk about the five amalgamations, combinations that I think this archetype can be thrown in with that are going to give them the best chance to compete on a high level competitively. At least with this support. Now, this is a new archetype. I'm totally expecting new cards to come in the next set and maybe even the next set after that. So things are always liable to change. In fact, the archetype that people compare this the most to is Tri-Brigade. A lot of similarities there. When Tri-Brigade had their first wave, they didn't really do much at all. And then when they got Kit and Bearbrum, that's when they really started to take off. So are we waiting for those next two cards that really help the engine connect everything else? We'll see, but for now, this is what we got. So this is link-based archetype. If you don't know, it's all about, it supports plants, insects, and reptiles, whereas Tri-Brigade supported the three Tri-Beast types, which is cool. It has a couple of good starters. It has some really good link monsters. This guy link climbs really well. This guy searches their in-archetype trap card. That's just like a pop. It's like a better Icarus attack, which is pretty solid. This card, not so good. This one's honestly, in my opinion, the weakest of the links. It's kind of like a weird, like, hand floodgate card. And this guy pops two monsters when something's special summoned, which is pretty decent. So we'll take it. Good start to the archetype. Let's jump into what I think are the top five. And in my opinion, there's really only five leading the pack at this moment in time. But I also think it's important to note that Konami's smart when they do this stuff. When they release a new archetype like this and it seems like it doesn't do enough on its own and it really needs to combine with stuff, Konami's no fool. I believe that two, maybe even three new archetypes, or maybe it's legacy support that they really want to push, is going to come out in the next calendar year, you know what I mean, in 2024, that is plant, insect, or reptile support. That's just, Konami just does this all the time. We're like, oh, something comes out, doesn't make sense. We end up immediately getting a new support or an archetype that fits right at home with the archetype that came out that you were like, oh, now it all makes sense. So keep your mind open for that as well. But let's dive into it. First on my list, we're going to start with the ones that I think are a little more fringe, is Naturia. These are just basic cores here. I'm not diving too much into the specifics of the deck builds here, but just wanted to show off kind of an idea of what we could be looking at here. Now, the big problem here is that this core is hit in the TCG, right? Specifically, Sacred Tree is only at 1, which does make it a little bit harder to play this deck, although also that's worth noting that this deck doesn't generically discard. Oh, no, it does. Excuse me. The continuous spell actually is a generic discard for the RAIKA. So you do have a way to, with the RAIKA engine, if you open Maracube or the quick play spell or continuous spell, to discard Sacred Tree, which is really good. And then, the downside is you got to play the Blessings, which can be bricks if you don't open the Naturia engine, but still, it's pretty cool. Mole Cricket being able to rotate into continuous grind game for a couple turns is really nice. And then being able to also lean on your link monsters here is really strong as well. There's some interesting stuff for sure. Now, some weird parts is that also for Naturia specifically, one of the strongest things they could always do in their builds is make Naturia Beast and even Barkion in trap matchups. But you have to keep in mind that once you basically get started with the RAIKA engine, it's going to lock you into only insects, plants, and reptiles, which these are neither any of those. So that makes it tough, right? You can potentially lock yourself out of being able to make like two of your strongest end board pieces matchup wise. But still, the deck has a lot of cool things it can do, and it can still help you link climb and go from there. So it's a cool build. Naturias almost exclusively are like plants and insects. And so the main core that we saw with like Naturia Runic is totally online here. Just a little bit of stuff in the extra deck that you're going to get locked out of, but still decent potential there. I definitely don't want to sleep on that one. I'm going to take a look at it when the cards get closer to coming out. Next up is Trap Tricks. This is the other like specific archetype if we're not getting like more generic, because they're all, again, insects and plants. That's the whole Trap Tricks archetype basically. They already have a bunch of normal summons, which is nice because you don't really want to have to normal summon Maracube. You'd rather pitch something generic to summon it, and then as you're going through your combo, reborn whatever you pitched. that's a really cool aspect of this deck, in my opinion, is because Myrmelio is not once per turn on the back row pop effect. So you can like potentially summon it off of like Sarah doing like standard Trap Tricks lines, and then when you go to make the Link 2, or when you make a Link monster using Kamakiri, Kamakiri can reborn something like a Myrmelio, and then Myrmelio pop a card, right? And go on from there. Or you could normal Dianea early in the combo, reborn it to get something back, and it, you know, be able to trigger those effects in ways that Trap Tricks aren't normally able to trigger them. It's really cool, for sure. So I don't know. This one to me again is a little bit cheeky. Like Trap Tricks already kind of work in their own archetype pretty well, so they don't really feel like they need the help. But I do think there's a world where like an engine here could help just give them a little extra gas. We'll have to wait and see on that. The one thing you do need to keep an eye on is Holtea, or Holusha, however you pronounce this. But basically, if you don't want to, like, this card is better and more consistent as an extender if you're playing 15, 20 trap cards. But in this deck, because you're playing this whole other 10-card engine, you may be like, oh, it's way harder to fit as many traps as I want in this deck as I was before. So that could take away a little bit of consistency from that, and that's one of the best cards in the deck, basically. But still, there could be something here, at least maybe a small engine to maybe play around with. That definitely could be something to look at, but we'll see. All right, then we get to the top three, and these are definitely the top three to me because they're just like more wide open. This is just Reptile, RAIKA. And I think Reptile's already had some potential. I think their downsides are that they definitely have a handful of cards that like you really want to play, but they're not good to draw, right? Stuff like your Planet Pollutant Virus, stuff like your big snake monsters, none of which are really great to draw. But the deck definitely has discard outlets, so that's not the end of the world. But now like Marakube and the Continuous Spell give you even more discard outlet potential, which is really cool. And so now the deck's able to potentially go for like the Cosmic Slicer lock with your big boy here, RAIKA Nodalga, for the pop 2, and even the Kubik Karamai, the RAIKA trap for potentially 2 more pops on top of that as well. So it's cool. It definitely has more layers to it. Basically, when I was playing this deck, I was basically trying to just set up like Zerol plus like Ogdo Abyss in most hands, but now giving the deck extra layers with this engine is pretty nice. So we'll see. We'll see. I think this one fits way better than the first 2 we talked about. There's even a bunch of stuff in the side deck that I think could matter as well. I've seen a lot of people talking about Serpentine Princess for the new archetype. It's funny. I don't know if it's actually good or not. Lamia searching level 8's fine. Unless we get like a new level 8 Reptile from this archetype, I don't know if this will be worth it. The Therian Reptile's a decent extender as well. Hyperia is interesting if the deck can actually... If the engine gives you a way to access generically one of these 3 types, like from the deck, this becomes so much more interesting because then we're drawing every turn. So this one's interesting as well. And then Codal, if you want to go into the Reptilian package. To me right now, we're still waiting on Reptilians to just get better. They're just not good enough right now, this package, but they have some setup, right? Decent extender, and like a search card. There's a world where they give us more Reptilian support sooner than later, and it's like actually cooking. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely a lot going on there. That's a really cool one as well, in my opinion. Probably the third, though. Number 2 and number 1 are honestly, to me, are interchangeable. It kind of just depends on your opinion, but Plants is definitely up there. The Plants just have too many things going on. They hit them on the ban list, so that's definitely a huge part of it, but they only really hit like the Sanavalon part of the deck. So RAIKAs are still running around free. Aromas not only are running around free, but now they, on top of Jasmine, get a whole new wave of support in Phantom Nightmare that's actually looks pretty good. Good monster in the main deck, really good Link 3, and a decent spell card as well for them. All there, so that can be abusable. And then on top of that, like, we still don't know for sure if the Sun Avalon stuff is like unplayable. There's still a world where it's totally playable and like where you can still cook with that. But we have to wait and see on that. I'm just not totally convinced. But the coolest parts about this deck to me are the RAIKAs, because like the RAIKA setups are really strong. Stuff like having a rival plus like Sheet or one of the links is pretty powerful. Or not the links, the Exceeds is really, really strong. And then after that, you've got so many extra deck monsters that some of the other types don't quite have, like Jasmine, Dance Peony, Bengal Lancer, and then when you get to the Exceeds, you have all three of these staple Exceeds in the RAIKA decks, and really, really solid. So I think there's a decent setup here. I think this one could be really, really scary. I think this could be potentially an engine that unlocks the future of like plants post the ban list, because I've heard some people say the deck's dead. Also good stuff, awesome, like, because a lot of people haven't really been a big fan of it. But the aroma stuff plus this archetype and the fact that the best starter in the deck is the plant. So there's a world where we don't even have to play these. I have these here, but there's a world where you don't even have to play these, because you can summon this guy, search like this and this, like search the trap and the spell, or maybe you just play one of these to use super early in the combo or something, and then like you're not worried about getting locked as much, and then go from there. Plus, as we move forward, I'm going to expect to get a couple more main deck cards, which gives us more avenues to make use of this card. So really, really good potential there. I think this one definitely could be scary. We just need to figure out lines with the new Arrow Mage stuff, and if we're going to actually play them together, and then go from there. And number one is bees. Insects, I think, are maybe back on the menu. I don't know if they're all the way back, but I do think they're really, really interesting now. Specifically, the fact that the two links that matter the most, in my opinion, as far as like building an end board, are the link 3 and the link 5. The link 5 and the link 3 are both insects. So even if you lock yourself in insects with the actual like insect cards here, these guys are totally still on the table. So you can make the link 3, search the trap, then link up into the 5 and have basically 3 pops, which is decent for sure. And on top of this deck has really good ways to extend after getting your board removed. And so basically having like a simple extend in your hand means that like even if you get nibbed, and this archetype seems to really struggle with nib, it means that if you can just put any body on the field, so like a Doomdozer post getting nibbed, or maybe even like Tokage if you play it, or something like a Salt Roller, you can just put it back for one of the links that you already put in grave or got nibbed, and then potentially just link up into the big link 5, and then boom. Even through that, you're getting grind by putting those links in grave, while also having basically a double pop on the opponent's turn, which is not bad. There's also plenty of good extra deck monsters that this deck already has access to, and a bunch of extenders. Just as many extenders as you could ever want. Insects have them all. And there's even really cool like utility cards like Retaliating Sea, depending on the format and matchup. Contact Sea, same thing. Kaijus that are searchable, really cool. Begram has a cool win condition. Not sure if it's worth playing the brick sometimes, but it's definitely a card I look at and think about for sure. And then even some more of the Bee Trooper spells and traps that you could totally try and toss in here as well. It's a really cool deck. It's a deck that like pluses in weird ways. Pluses by like searching stuff like Sting Lancer and having just like that hand trap in hand that also searches you follow up. I don't know if it's all the way good enough, because like to me, I always said that insects were that archetype to me that felt like they needed their own hieratic seal. So there's no link 2 in this archetype now that's like quite that good, but there is a link 3 that like if you just get to this link 3 now, you do just get a trap that's going to be a pop. So that's something to work with for sure. And we'll just have to see if it all comes together in the end. But I like the specs on it. I'm definitely going to mess around with it. I'm definitely going to have my eye on this archetype to pick up, and we'll probably even see what the second wave of support actually looks like even before we even get the support in the TCG, the first wave. But hopefully Konami does this archetype justice, because this one's really, really cool. I like it because Beast Warriors and Winged Beasts were never like forsaken. These archetypes are some of the least used, other than plants maybe. Insects and reptiles are some of the most abused types in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm glad that they get lumped in here and get a little extra love. But that's it for me today, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below on this. What variant is your favorite so far that you're most excited to mess around with? If you've been eyeballing this archetype, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on that stuff here. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel. We've still got, I think, 17 more cards to get revealed in the next week, basically. So I'll keep you tuned in on anything that drops in between now and then. But I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Peace.